right, happy Monday. I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend, but it's time to get back to some college football here. And, of course, we had a lot of college football over the weekend, a lot of spring games played on Saturday. We live streamed during several of them on Saturday over the weekend. I made a couple of videos yesterday about a couple of the spring games that we watched, and it's time to do it again today with two more teams, Ole Miss and Ohio State. Let's start with Ole Miss. Who remembers Walker Howard? The ground shake. Yeah, that guy. Now, that's not a knock on Walker Howard. I feel bad for him that he got put in that situation, but I mean, that was humiliating. That was absolutely humiliating. Anyway, he's at Ole Miss now, and he looked pretty good in the game on Saturday. What I want to talk about with Ole Miss, and the reason I'm doing Ole Miss and Ohio State in the same video, I've got to admit I was wrong about something. For the last couple of years, I've been coming on here every year around this time and complaining, really, bitching and moaning, that there aren't enough spring games being televised on TV. And while a part of me still feels that way, after some of what I saw this past weekend, I think I'm starting to kind of get it from the TV network's perspective here. How many people still watch the NFL? I know a lot of people just have sworn off the NFL. That's fine. That's not what the point. Even people who still love the NFL, people who watch it every week, people who have a favorite team, people who are invested in the NFL. You know what I hear them complaining about the most, besides the Super Bowl halftime show and Taylor Swift? The Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl has become unwatchable over the last decade or so. Why? It's not a football game. Skills challenges, two-hand touch, flag football. It's so far away from what football actually is that it has turned off. First of all, the only people that would watch a Pro Bowl is your diehard fans. Diehard fans will watch almost anything, right? Check the ratings for the Pro Bowl. They're in the toilet. Even the diehard fans are sick and tired of watching what the NFL is now calling a Pro Bowl. It's an absolute joke. And this gets me to some of the spring games that we see. This is basically what a lot of these spring games are turning into. They are so far removed from what actual football is. It's really disrespectful to football to even call some of these spring games football. Now, most of us have been watching spring games in college football for a long time, and we understand certain things about the spring games. It's not a real game. It's a scrimmage. It's a practice. It's a showcase for the fans. It's this, is that. I get all that. I get all that. Quarterbacks wear black jerseys. They're not allowed to be sacked. We have sort of, whether we like it or not, come to kind of accept that about spring games over the years. But what I saw this weekend in these two, from these two teams here, Ohio State and Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss was not on traditional television. It was streaming only. Ohio State was on TV. And look, I came on here and I gave a lot of credit to Fox, and I said, we need more of this. They're putting Ohio State spring game on. People are hungry for football this time of year. I went to bat. That Ohio State spring game was unwatchable. I'm a diehard college football fan. I will watch almost anything, even remotely resembling college football. I turned it off after 10 minutes. No tackling at all. I don't mean the tackling was bad. I don't mean players were out of position or looked ill-prepared. Not that. I don't mean that. I mean no tackling as in it's not allowed for any of the starters. Now, eventually, once they put the second and third stringers in, they would allow them to tackle, which I'd love an explanation on that. So I guess it's okay for a third stringer to get hurt because he was tackled, but it's not okay for a starter to get hurt because he was. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's not football. It's flag football. It's a pillow fight. It's two-hand touch. Does that mean anything for Ohio State in terms of next season? Maybe not. I don't know. Like anything else with the spring games, I don't think you can draw a straight line from anything you see, good or bad, to what you might see in the fall. But in case you're wondering, this isn't the first time Ohio State has done the no tackling routine during spring practice. Going all the way back to 2021, they were doing the same thing. And I want you to ask yourself, what is the knock on Ohio State over the last 2 or 3 years? What has it been? Whether you agree with it or not, what has the knock on Ohio State been over the last 2 or 3 years? What word has been used to describe Ohio State over the last 2 or 3 years? And then ask yourself if that word applies to a spring game where you're not allowed to tackle. Now, again, to Ohio State's credit, and I came on here 100 times last year and said it, their defense was unbelievable last year. They had a great defense, was top 5. All right. But what happened? You got your ass beat by Michigan again. And you got your ass beat in the postseason by the SEC again. Is it because you don't tackle in the spring game? I'm not saying that's the reason. Maybe it's part of the reason. It's an overall mentality. There's no way. I know on the internet, we have to defend our team to the death and nothing they do is wrong and everything they do is right. And there cannot be an Ohio State fan alive who says, who cares? Who cares if they tackle or not? I don't get it. I don't get it. You're 5 months away from the season. Look, Jeremiah Smith is just as likely to get hurt planting his foot in the ground to run a 10-yard out route as he is to get hurt because some defensive back tackles him. In fact, the majority of injuries that occur in college football are non-contact injuries. So not tackling really is not solving, it's not solving any problem. It's a solution for a problem that doesn't really exist. Is it possible someone gets hurt when they're tackled? Yes, of course it is. It's possible I go check my mail today and a piano falls on my head. But you have to check the mail. And in football, you got to tackle. And it's just funny to me. And I guess it turns out Southern Cal is the same way. Now, I can't confirm that. I have not yet watched a Southern Cal spring game. I don't recall watching a Southern Cal Lincoln Riley-led spring game in the past. But I was told on Twitter by multiple people that Southern Cal does the same thing. They don't tackle in the spring game. And I just would ask this one simple question. If I asked you to name the 2 softest teams in football, again, it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. We're talking about public perception. The public perception of teams like Ohio State and Southern Cal is that they're soft. That's the public perception. Whether it's reality or not, y'all can argue with that about your mama or argue about that with your mama, or you can argue about it in the comment section. The public perception of teams like Southern Cal and Ohio State is that they're soft. There's no debating that. That's 100% the public perception. It's so much the public perception about Ohio State that when they beat Notre Dame, their coach has to come out in the post-game press conference and actually cry about it. So we know that's the public perception of those 2 teams. Do you think not tackling in a spring game furthers that perception? I mean, it's just pitiful. So I'm going back to airing on to siding with the networks here. The Ohio State spring game had no business being on TV. Now I get that a lot of people wanted to watch it, and look, a lot of people probably tuned into that thing at noon. I'd be curious to see how many people were still watching at 12:15 though. I don't know if that's, look, I'm no TV ratings expert. I can Google the TV ratings like anybody else can, but in terms of how many people were watching at the start versus 15 minutes later, I don't know. But I am willing to bet a significant amount of money that there were less people watching at 12:15 than were watching at 12. Because people like me, I'm a diehard college football fan. I wanted to see what Ohio State looked like with the new quarterback, right? How does Devin Brown year 2? How improved is he? What about the guy they brought in from Kansas State, Will Howard? What about him? Jeremiah Smith, number 1 overall player in the country last year coming out of high school. How's he going to look? Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. There's stars everywhere. I was excited to watch the Ohio State spring game. Now, I'm a sick individual when it comes to college football, and I'll watch just about anything. I turned it off after 10 minutes. It was unwatchable. It was unwatchable. And there's no way Fox can look back and say, man, I sure am glad we put that on broadcast television at noon for the world to see. There's no way they're happy with that decision, and I'd be absolutely shocked if they do it again next year. What I think the network should do instead is get with these teams ahead of time and say, look, and I actually agree with this. Teams can run their spring games, spring practice, however they want. I don't think for a second that Ohio State should be forced to tackle during their spring game or use a normal scoring structure, which is another thing I have an issue with. I'll get to that when we talk about Ole Miss, but a lot of teams do this. I think it's a terrible idea. In order for people to enjoy watching something, they have to be able to follow it. They have to know what's going on. They have to understand it. You can't understand the scoring system in these spring games. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But the TV networks need to get with these schools in February or whatever and say, look, We're not telling you what to do. You can run your spring practice any way you choose to, which is obvious. No one's going to tell any coach or any program this is what you have to do during your spring practice and your spring game. But the networks don't have to air it on TV. The networks need to get with these coaches a couple of months ahead of time, because there are teams out there. Ohio State fans, this might blow your mind. There are teams out there that play their spring game, and it actually looks like a real football game. I know that might blow your mind. They use normal scoring structures. They tackle. It's unbelievable. You should check it out. The network should get with these teams, and they should find out which teams are holding spring games that most resemble actual football. And those are the games that should be put on TV for the masses to see. And then everything else should be slid over to the streaming networks like, ESPN Plus or whatever streaming goes on with Fox and all the other different things like that. But that Ohio State game was completely unwatchable. Now, how did the team look? Well, they looked pretty good considering no one could tackle them. Now, it's already impossible really to judge quarterbacks, especially running quarterbacks during a spring game, because you're never allowed to touch, look at, get anywhere near the quarterback in these spring games. But at Ohio State, that's the case for every single player on the field. The whistle gets blown when anybody gets within 2 yards of the running back, whether he's 5 yards downfield or 20 yards downfield. He runs into the line of scrimmage as soon as a defensive lineman gets anywhere near him. The play is over. Wide receiver catches the ball, turns upfield. There's a DB there. Whistle blows, play over. You're not allowed to hit him, not allowed to tackle him, not allowed to push him out of bounds. Nothing. So, again, I still think Ohio State's one of the most talented teams in the country. I still think they're going to be one of the best teams in the country next season. How good, how great, I don't know. What are they going to do in the regular season? We'll see. They got to go on the road and play Oregon. Here's what I do know. Will not tackling during the spring game make them lose to Oregon? Will it make them lose to Michigan at the end of the year? Will it make them lose to whatever SEC team they play in the postseason? No, it won't. Will not tackling in the spring game help them to beat Oregon? Will not tackling in the spring game help them to beat Michigan? Will not tackling in the spring game help them to beat an SEC team in the postseason? No, it won't. And that's a fact. How do we know? Because they've been not tackling for the last 3 years, and they can't beat the SEC, and they can't beat Michigan. Ryan Day's lost 3 in a row to Michigan. He's never beaten the SEC. Was he 0-3 in the postseason? It just seems to me, what is it? The definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result? Ohio State's doing the same thing. The result may end up being the same. There's nothing wrong with tackling in football. On to Ole Miss. Let's wrap up Ohio State. I think they're going to be good. They'll be fine. They're one of the most talented teams. They're still going to win a bunch of games. They still got a really good chance of making a 12-team playoff. Okay? This is just about the spring game. Unwatchable. And I find it impossible to believe that any Ohio State fans enjoyed watching what they saw on TV on Saturday. It's a joke. On to Ole Miss. Now, they played something similar to or closer to real football than Ohio State did when they played football. Half the day, that's not what they were doing. This was like a fucking middle school. You remember field day when you were in elementary school or middle school, where instead of going to class all day long, you went outside and you did dumb shit like tug of war? That's what Ole Miss did. They had a fucking hot dog eating contest. A hot dog eating contest. Tug of war. What else? A slam dunk contest. And look, some diehard Ole Miss fans are going to say, that was entertaining. We had a great time. I'm sure you did. No one wants to watch it. They don't. Look at the Pro Bowl and the skills challenges and all this crap. The NBA, the dunk contest has gone to shit over the last 50. Nobody wants to see that. You know what we want to see? People play the sport that we're tuned in to watch them play. Why is this like, why is what I'm saying some novel idea? It's not. I'm a college football fan. When I tune into college football, guess what I want to see? Football! I don't know how many people on the face of the planet could possibly care about which group of 5 fat people on Ole Miss's team can outpull some other random group of 5 fat people on Ole Miss's team in tug of war. I don't see how anyone cares about that. Now, at least that game wasn't on national broadcast television like the Ohio State pillow fight was. This was streaming only. But again, the whole point of this video really is not, we're going to talk about Ole Miss and Ohio State, but it's to say I was wrong. The networks got it right, not me. I wanted all these things televised. Like, you remember you saw the video a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, ESPN's got 8 channels. Fox has FS1, FS2, all this crap. All these games should be on regular TV. No, I was wrong. They shouldn't. The networks need to get with these schools, find out which teams are actually playing football during their football game, which I can't even believe I have to say that. And those are the games that should be televised for the public to see on regular TV if that's what they're going to do. And put all this circus shit. Oh, did Ole Miss, were they firing midgets out of cannons? I mean, that would have been the only thing missing. I'm not making any of this up, people. This is all 100% accurate. I can read to you right here from the official Ole Miss OleMissSports.com, the official Ole Miss site, but they got pictures of the dunk contest here. Here you go. Let's see. The red and navy teams faced off in a dunk contest, tug of war, a hot dog eating contest, and a Grove Bowl gauntlet, with the red team coming out with a narrow victory, 71-70. Again, with those weird scoring. We don't want this shit, okay? Let me ask you this. Have you ever sat down to watch a football game with somebody that's never seen football before or knows very little about football, and they ask questions like, why did that team punt? I don't understand. Why would you give the ball to the other team? Or, hey, that team just kicked the ball through those post things. Why'd they get 3 points for that? You ever had to do that? You ever had to sit through a game and explain that kind of thing to them? The reason you have to explain it to them is because they don't understand the scoring, right? No, there ain't a person on the planet that understands this fucking scoring. You get 4 points for winning the tug of war contest, but there's 5 rounds of tug of war. I mean, this is just ridiculous. So the Rebels kicked off Saturday with a dunk contest. The red team won. Okay, so they're up 21. That put them up 21-0. What? How? Switching up to the hardwood, the Rebels kicked off Saturday with a dunk contest, and the red team took bragging rights and opened an early lead at 21-0. So apparently winning the dunk contest was worth 3 touchdowns and 3 extra points. 21-0, red team on top. Great. Then they played 1 quarter of 7-on-7. The Underwear Olympics. The Underwear Olympics. This is like high school camps. This is like Elite 11. 7-on-7. No offensive lines, no defensive lines. Quarterback, couple of running backs, 3 or 4 wide receivers, some DBs, and 2 linebackers. Skeleton drill for a spring game. But don't worry, after that, the red team scored during that, which somehow put them up 27-0. Great. Unbelievable. We then had 5 rounds of tug of war. Reds' dominance continued with a first round win, which obviously added 4 points to their score because everybody knows you get 4 points in football for winning tug of war. Now it's 31-0. Don't worry, Navy. You then won the second round of tug of war and got 4 points. Red won the next one, then Navy won another one. After the tug of war, the dunk contest, in 1 quarter of 7-on-7 skeleton underwear Olympics, the score was 39-8. What happened after that? Glad you asked. A second quarter of 7-on-7 drills. Good. Walker Howard, touchdown pass. Great. Remember Walker Howard? I do. The score then was 46-14. Okay, great. Guest appearance after that. Guest appearance by none other than Joey fucking Chestnut. And look, nobody loves a slob more than Uncle Lou. I love Joey Chestnut. The guy can eat 1 million hot dogs in a minute or 2. That's amazing. What does that have to do with this football game on Saturday? I don't know, but they trot Joey Chestnut's happy ass out here. He subbed in for the Navy team and ate 20 hot dogs in 90 seconds. That gave Navy 36 points somehow. So now, because Joey Chestnut ate 20 hot dogs, the score is red team 46, Navy 36. Makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense. Now back to 7-on-7 now. More underwear Olympics where Austin Simmons connects with somebody for another touchdown. Navy pulled within 3 points 46. Oh my God, we got a game here. Can't wait to see what's next. Jackson Dart reached Trey Harris in the end zone for the red team to go up 56-43. The Grove Bowl gauntlet was next, and Navy ran away with wins in 3 out of the 4 rounds as the Reds still remained ahead 61 to 58. Unbelievable. Heading into the final quarter of 7-on-7, Navy took its first lead with a touchdown. Now Navy's up 65-61 over the red team. 50-yard field goal. Put them ahead 73-61. Coach's scoring changed. They said, oh, well, what a shock this was. They figured out towards the end of the game they had fucked up the scoring. I don't know how that could have happened. How do you fuck up such a clear-cut scoring system here? Unbelievable. But they did. So they adjusted the score to 70-64 with 2 minutes remaining. Howard hit another touchdown pass, tied at 70. Came down to a make or a miss field goal from the Navy team, 65 yards. They didn't make it. Final score 71-70. I don't know what this was, but it wasn't a football game. And Ohio State needs to put their fucking pillows. If we want, look, I've seen the Lingerie Bowl. Got no problem with it. Got no interest in watching Ohio State play one, though. Have a good morning.